Drugs are menacing our society. They're threatening our values and undercutting our institutions. They're killing our children.
Racial profiling is the use of race, ethnicity, gender, religion, or nationality by law enforcement agents as a factor in deciding whom to investigate, arrest, or detain, absent of evidence of a specific crime or criminal behavior. Racial profiling was revitalized by Reagan in the 1980s when he declared his war on drugs, which disproportionately targeted African Americans. There was a shift towards neoliberal principles which favored a restricted government role and entailed privatization of institutions that could be run efficiently by businesses at lower costs. As large corporations, prisons were able to receive federal aid and increase profits with a greater intake of prisoners. In parallel with the war on drugs and harsher punishment, there was a clear reason to police differently than before.
In 1998, Sergeant Rossano Gerald, a black man, had been stopped twice for minor traffic infractions on the same day. On the second stop, the police forced him into a squad car while they took apart his car and searched for drugs, even though there was no probable cause for Gerald harboring them. Gerald successfully sued the police department for $75,000 due to his mistreatment.
Black people are still arrested and stopped more often than any other race. Blacks constitute 13% of all drug dealers in the United States. 37% of those arrested on drug charges, 55% of those convicted of drug charges, and 74% of all drug offenders sentenced to prison. We are not in a post-racial society.
There's history, especially the painful memories of the civil rights movement. And today's reality, black males are incarcerated at roughly 7 times the rate of their white counterparts. 76% of blacks in a recent ABC News poll said African Americans do not receive equal treatment from police as whites do.
Police are more likely to arrest someone who is perceived as being hostile or disrespectful. Because people of color have been over-policed, they distrust officers and can act hostile towards the police. Officers are continually occupied with the perception of violence and danger, which in turn can exacerbate the policing of African Americans.
Raymond Marshall, president of the California State Bar, says a police officer followed him into his driveway late one evening and asked if he lived in the house.
He then asked what I thought was a second question. Could you tell me the address of where you've pulled into? I identified the address, the correct address, remarkably enough. And the officer then proceeds to simply thank me for cooperating.
The ACLU contends stops of that nature exacerbate the often hostile relationship between police and minorities.
I can walk in the street in New York City and put my hand out and no taxi will pass me by. I can walk in the street and no woman's going to grab their purse in fear of me. I can walk into a restaurant and no one's going to ask me to pay before I eat. I can walk through my neighborhood and no one's going to call 911 and say I look suspicious. I wore a hoodie, I wore a pair of jeans and a pair of white tennis shoes this weekend, as I do every weekend, and no one's ever going to stop and say, hey, that guy looks suspicious. And it's for one reason and one reason only, because I'm white.
In 1999, Chief of Police Dean Esserman changed the department award system to award those who solve the most problems in the community instead of to those who put the most dangerous criminals behind bars. This new award system led to a triple and decline in New York's crime rate.
What do we want? Justice! What do we want it now?
They chanted together for justice and one by one grabbed the bullhorn.
We will not stand for our children being beaten by police officers.
Hundreds of people rallied outside the federal building in downtown Pittsburgh, part of a nationwide call for demonstrations in dozens of cities to protest the not guilty verdict in the George Zimmerman trial.
Everything that has happened in the past has created this distrust. And the only way that we can really begin to repair this distrust is if
we're working together, not just talking about it, but actually working together where there's things that can be measured and evaluated to demonstrate that a change is on board.